You have very certainly been familiar with the Rosetta Stone. What exactly is it, despite the fact that it is one of the most well-known artifacts in the British Museum? Today we are going to talk about the Rosetta Stone and its importance. Please subscribe to our channel before starting this video. Let's take a more in-depth look. Can you tell me about the Rosetta Stone? One of the most well-known artifacts housed at the British Museum is called the Rosetta Stone. What exactly is it though? The stone is a fragment that used to be a bigger stone slab but was broken off and found on its own. It is carved with a message, and that message is inscribed in 3 distinct scripts so that everybody who sees it may read it. Researchers were finally able to translate the Egyptian hieroglyphs thanks to this important piece of evidence, a writing system that used pictures as signs. Why is it necessary to do so? Ptolemy V reigned from 204 to 181 BC. And the inscription on the stone is an official message, also known as an edict, about the king at that period. The decree was written on enormous stone slabs that were referred to as stelae, and these stelae were installed in each and every temple that existed in Egypt. It is believed that the priests who functioned at a temple situated in Memphis, which is in the Egyptian city of Memphis, supported the pharaoh. Memphis is located in Egypt. The fact that the Rosetta Stone in question is only one among many copies means that it cannot, by itself, be accorded a level of significance that would warrant the term very important. Important for us is the fact that the decree is written in 3 different scripts: hieroglyphs, appropriate for a priestly decree; demotic, the cursive Egyptian script used for everyday purposes, meaning the language of the people; and ancient Greek, the language of the administration. The Greco-Macedonian rulers of Egypt at this point were Greco-Macedonian after Alexander the Great's conquest. The hieroglyphic rendering is appropriate for an edict issued by a priest. A variant of the Rosetta Stone that was incomplete and riddled with cracks was found. It has 14 lines of writing in hieroglyphics, 32 lines of writing in demotic, and 54 lines of writing in ancient Greek script. The field of Egyptology will benefit tremendously from the consideration of this fact. When it was initially discovered, nobody was able to decipher the ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs since none had ever been taught how to do so. Researchers were able to decipher the hieroglyphs with the help of the Rosetta Stone due to the fact that the inscriptions on the stone say the same thing in 3 different scripts. Additionally, the researchers were able to understand ancient Greek. When was it really discovered? Napoleon Bonaparte led military operations in Egypt between the years 1798 and 1801, with the objective of establishing supremacy in the East Mediterranean and presenting a threat to the British grasp on India. These wars were conducted with the purpose of establishing dominance in Egypt. Egypt was the location of these several campaigns. Despite the fact that stories of the stone's discovery in July 1799 are now relatively unclear, the story that the stone was discovered by mistake by troops in Napoleon's army is the one that is most often believed. This is despite the fact that stories of the stone's discovery in July 1799 are now relatively unclear. They discovered the Rosetta Stone on July 15, 1799, while they were digging the foundations of an addition to a fort near the town of Rashid, Rosetta, in the Nile Delta. The Rosetta Stone was used to decipher ancient Egyptian writing. It seems to have been built inside of an exceptionally old wall. The importance of the discovery was not lost on Pierre-François Bouchard, 1771-1822, who was the commander in authority at the time. The stone, along with any other antiquities that the French had found, was passed to the hands of the British in line with the terms of the Treaty of Alexandria, 1801, which was reached following Napoleon's defeat. The treaty was made in 1801 after the French had been defeated. After being brought across the ocean to England, where it finally arrived in February of 1802, the stone was installed at Portsmouth. Who was the one to decipher the code? When the 4th century AD came to a conclusion, so did the knowledge of how to read and write hieroglyphs, and so did the practice of using them. This was due to the fact that hieroglyphs were no longer used. Academics were able to decipher the writings on this stone by using the Greek that was inscribed on it as a key to decipher the inscriptions. The beginning of the 19th century saw the occurrence of this event. The term, "some of the hieroglyphs on the Rosetta Stone wrote the sounds of a royal name," was coined by an English physicist by the name of Thomas Young, 1773-1829. Who was one of the first to show that some of the hieroglyphs on the Rosetta Stone wrote the sounds of a royal name, Ptolemy's. The French scholar Jean-François Champollion, 1790-1832, then came to the conclusion that the sound of the Egyptian language was maintained in the hieroglyphs. This brought up a brand new window. Our comprehension of the language and culture of ancient Egypt is founded on a rock-solid foundation as a consequence of this. He made an important addition to our understanding of the writing system that was used in ancient Egypt when Champollion identified the hieroglyphs that were used to write the names of non-Egyptian monarchs using the hieroglyphs that were used to write the names of Egyptian kings. On September 27, 1822, he announced his results at a presentation that he gave to the Académie des Inscriptions et Belles Lettres in Paris. This presentation took place on the same day. This discovery had been established by an examination of the Rosetta Stone in addition to other pieces of written material. An opponent of his from England named Thomas Young, who was also working on deciphering Egyptian hieroglyphs, was present at the event as a member of the audience. This particular edition of the published paper, see the accompanying image titled Tableau de signes phonétiques, has an inscription written by Champollion in alphabetic hieroglyphs that translate to "à mon ami Du Bois," which literally translates to my buddy Du Bois. Then, Champollion made a second key discovery when he learned that the alphabetic signs were not simply used for foreign names but were also used for Egyptian names. This was a highly important finding for Champollion. This was a very significant advance in the right direction. This, in combination with the fact that he was fluent in Coptic, a language that originated from ancient Egyptian, allowed him the capacity to read hieroglyphic letters in their entirety for the first time. What exactly does the inscription have written on it? The Rosetta Stone has an inscription that is an edict that was made by a council of priests. On the first anniversary of his coronation, it is one of a series of statements that support the royal cult of Ptolemy V, who was just 13 years old at the time of his ascension to the throne, in 196 BC. The inscription on the stone said that a copy of the statement should be put in each significant temple across Egypt. This was to be done in accordance with the law. It is not known whether this really took place. Nevertheless, duplicates of the same edict that is written in 3 scripts and is multilingual have recently been discovered and may be shown in different museums. Therefore, the Rosetta Stone is one of several stelae that were mass-produced and aimed to broadly distribute an agreement that was issued by a council of priests in the year 196 BC. In point of fact, the inscription carved into the stone is a replica of a prototype that was written around a century earlier, in the 3rd century BC. This original text was discovered in Egypt. The only things that were altered were the date and the names. Where is it at this time? After being brought over to England in February of 1802, King George III gave the stone to the British Museum in July of the same year, opens in new window. Because the flooring of the museum were not robust enough to support the weight of the Rosetta Stone and other sculptures, they were temporarily housed in temporary constructions on the grounds of the museum. Following an appeal to Parliament for financial support, the trustees began construction of a new gallery to store the newly acquired items. Since 1802, with the exception of a brief period during World War I, the Rosetta Stone has been on display at the British Museum. It was transported to a safer location in 1917, towards the conclusion of the First World War, when the museum was worried about severe bombing in London. It was moved together with other movable artifacts that were considered to be essential. The historically significant item was housed for the subsequent 2 years at a station on the Postal Tube Railway located 50 feet below the surface of the earth in Holborn. So you've made it to the end. Hope you guys enjoyed watching this video. Leave a like and subscribe to our channel if you haven't done yet.